Welcome on in, this is Sprues and Studs, and today we are going to be taking a look at a character that is very prevalent in the Warhammer 40K universe, specifically the spiritual leaders of the Ultramarines chapter, which happens to be the Primaris Chaplain. So we're going to be taking a look at what makes this guy completely unique and completely different from his Terminator Chaplain brethren. And let's see if he is able to take that glorious limelight from the Terminator Chaplain. And without further ado, let's take a closer look.
Aha! Finally using a power sword to open this thing up. See if this Chaplain is as badass as the Terminator one. Lots of fixings involved. Pimstick. It is time to take a closer look into our Skull Lord over here, which happens to be of the Ultramarines chapter. So, anyways, we are going to take an in-depth look at this lovely Primaris Chaplain over here. And there is nothing to do except start with the top with the gigantic iron halo that's going on, which is slightly shaded to give a little bit more depth of flavor, as I keep saying in my videos. And we are going to move on and take a look at the Chaplain's helmet and or skull mask. And I would have to say this skull mask is pretty badass looking. You've got very red, metallic, beady eyes that are staring at you. And there is plenty of shading going on with the nose area, the teeth, and generally this looks pretty good and in-depth in my opinion. And as you look at the hood, you can also see that there is light highlighting that's going on with the top of this to make this thing further stand out from the rather, well, black armor of the Chaplain. So we're going to take a look at the pauldron, and this one actually is very interesting because this is technically a generic Primaris Chaplain. However, this guy has his name, Varus, written here, which is nicely screened across the whole entire banner here. And you have this nice silver skull and more of this gold halo around the skull area. And flipping over here, we have the characteristic Ultramarines U that is emblazoned on the left pauldron for all those who doubt that this guy is from the Ultramarines chapter. So the next thing that we're going to do is focus on the midsection of this action figure, and it appears that there is a bunch of pipes over here that have been shaded very nicely, and I believe that there are some slight highlights too over here if my eyes do not deceive me. And then on either side of the Chaplain, you can see these nice long purity seal ribbons or rosaries. I'm not exactly too sure how to call them. And within the both of them, you can see that there is a double aquila. This ribbon area is made of a very soft plastic material. You can see that there are little inscriptions that are etched into the plastic over here. And the nice thing about JoyToy is they always shade this thing to make this thing stand out a little bit more. Then you get more of these skulls as well as this Roman numeral 2 that is screened very nicely on this piece over here. And it is more or less the same on this side. And rounding out the end is this half sun kind of thing. In the middle of the Chaplain, you get to see the skeletal armor chest over here, and the chest is a characteristic bone color that has been shaded a nice tan color, and within this, another skeletal icon here. Below that is, guess what? More skull icons, as you come to expect from all these lovely Chaplains here. So the next thing that we're going to take a look at is the middle section of this lovely Chaplain. And what do we get here? There is a separate soft plastic belt piece that goes around the waist of this action figure and a gigantic holster for the Absolver bolt pistol. And this holster does not have any highlights whatsoever on it, which is fine. You can see a little shading going on down here, but it is very light. And there is your characteristic purity seal that's hanging down. And let's take a look at this waistcoat, or whatever you want to call it. So you have this large, gigantic amulet that is hanging down over here, which is a very cool looking thing. And within these chains here have been heavily shaded, which I really like and gives more depth to this action figure and helps these silver links jump out. And down here you have more of these icons, rosaries, pendants, whatever you want to call them. So apparently this one is almost like a bullet-shaped one. And this one has an interesting 2 horns on top of it, a gold skull, and some silver action going on over here. And then embroidered on the waistcoat is a bunch of golden skulls. And this actually is sticking up from the waistcoat itself, and the same goes on with this side as well. You get to see a tome that has a bunch of leather straps here, and within the leather straps, once again, more shading. The tome also on the cover is shaded, and within the inner pages, you can also see more shading too. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on here. There are 2 separate pouches here. And on the back of the waistcoat, you get to see some highlights also that have been done. And once you flip up this waistcoat, there is the characteristic tan color that you find on most of these Space Marines. Flipping this area up, there is nothing in the way of adornment on this left side. However, on the right side, you get to see a bunch of silver spikes right here and a golden skull on the knee, as well as more spikes down here. So that is the body of the chaplain done. Let's take a look at all the accessories, starting off with this badass Absolver bolt pistol. So this Absolver bolt pistol is very cool looking, and this thing is actually more badass than your regular bolt pistol. As you can see, it is larger, and in the game it does more damage and is a beast, I'll be honest with you. So this obviously has a red casing, and within the red casing there are shading going on. You have a white wing skull, and then your characteristic bolt gun silver and weathering that's going on here. So that is the Absolver bolt pistol. So let's just take a look at this rosary right here. And within this rosary, you get to see a bunch of beads, and then within the beads are some skulls that have been added in between them. More shading going on in between the recesses of the beads, and you can see a winged pendant right here as well. So we're going to put this guy down and take a look at this gigantic pimp stick, or otherwise known as the Crozius Arcanum. So the thing that you have to get used to with the Primaris version is this is, again, a gigantic pimp stick. The old Firstborn Marines used to have a wing on both sides, as evident by the Terminator Chaplain, which we have reviewed earlier. But regardless, this seems to be a little bit more plain compared to the other Crozius. However, it's still menacing and badass, as you can see that there are these awesome spikes that are sticking up top of the skull for more blunt force trauma. And then, looking at the eye section, it is heavily shaded right here. Although it would have been actually nice to see some shading within this teeth region. And then moving down here, you can see some extensive shading also right here. And if you actually look at the review video that I did for Voldus, JoyToy did a very fantastic job of filling in these patterns right here. But unfortunately on this guy, the shading is non-existent, so it actually doesn't jump out as much. But still, this is a very awesome looking pimp stick. So that is the review of our spiritual brother. Let's close the book on this chapter.
So I am a big fan of this Primaris Chaplain action figure. To be honest, this was actually one of the first figures when I got back into 8th edition that my eyes gravitated towards. I think there's a certain kind of like really sleek, badass aesthetic about this guy that Games Workshop as well as JoyToy managed to capture. So would I recommend this action figure to get? Yeah, absolutely. He's got this very, scary skull face, and he's got his gigantic pimp stick, as well as this cool Absolver bolt pistol that is very unique. And I actually do like this guy more than the Terminator Chaplain, mainly because he's actually more fluid and has a lot more movement involved. While the Terminator Chaplain does look really nice and very ornate, I feel like he's literally a deadweight. So this is, I believe, a very nice happy medium between those two action figures. So again, that being said, I do recommend you to get this. It's going to stand out in your collection, especially if you have Ultramarines in your collection. There's pretty much a sea of blue, and then you can intersperse it with some black for the chaplains as well as the red for the Tech Marine. So anyways, this is Brews and Studs. I hope you enjoyed this in-depth review of this action figure. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button if these in-depth reviews are your thing. And there is going to be plenty more content coming from JoyToy. September is going to be a massive month, so please stay tuned until then. And as you all know, I will see you all in the next one.